When the senior analyst said, "I'll just rewrite it myself, yours looks like a high school project," about my budget report, I forwarded her version to the finance VP and included a side-by-side comparison with comments from our college intern. He replied with, "Let's talk about formatting standards," and CC'd her boss. I'm still shaking my head thinking about how it all went down. This started out as just another day at the office in Des Moines, Iowa, working as a junior financial analyst at a mid-sized manufacturing company. I was newish, about 2 years in, and pretty proud of the budget report I had spent the better part of a week preparing. I'm no Excel wizard, but I knew the numbers were solid. I had triple-checked the formulas, cross-verified with previous quarters, and I even stayed late on Friday to get the formatting right. The report was supposed to be presented to the finance VP, a no-nonsense guy named Glenn. Enter Karen, the senior analyst. She had been there for over 15 years, knew every trick in the book, and had a reputation for being difficult. I won't sugarcoat it. Karen had a way of making junior folks feel small. She wasn't just confident, she was downright condescending. When she saw my report, she barely glanced at the numbers and immediately sneered. "I'll just rewrite it myself. Yours looks like a high school project." That stung. I had been proud of it. I wanted to defend it, but she cut me off before I could say a word. At first, I felt furious. I wanted to storm off, throw the whole thing in the trash, and give up. But then, a little voice in the back of my mind told me to slow down and think. Karen was senior, sure. But what if her version had mistakes? What if she just didn't want me to shine? What if she was trying to sabotage me? I decided to do something that, looking back, I should have done from the start. I kept my copy and made a side-by-side comparison of her version and mine. I called in my secret weapon, too, Mike, the college intern who had been shadowing me for the last month. Mike was sharp, detail-oriented, and hadn't been jaded by office politics yet. I asked him to review both reports and note any issues. Mike's comments were like gold. He pointed out inconsistencies in Karen's formulas, missing data, and glaring formatting errors that would have made Glenn's head spin. He also praised my formatting as clean, professional, and easy to follow. I compiled everything neatly, including screenshots and notes from Mike. Now came the hard part. I forwarded the whole package to Glenn, the VP. I included both reports, the side-by-side comparison, and Mike's comments, all with a simple subject line. Budget report review. Please see attached. I didn't say a word about Karen or her attitude in the email. I kept it professional, just facts. The reply I got was unexpected. Glenn responded, "Let's talk about formatting standards." CCing Karen's manager. That was it, calm, cool, and immediately putting the ball in their court. Suddenly, Karen was no longer untouchable. Her boss was looped in, and the discussion moved to official channels. It turned out Karen had been rushing her version without proper review, and her errors weren't minor. They could have cost the company significant time and money. The fallout was swift. Karen got a formal reprimand, and her reputation took a hit. I was given a chance to present my report to the senior leadership team at the next meeting. Mike got a commendation for his eagle eyes. But the story doesn't end there. Karen's cold shoulder turned into icy hostility. Meetings became a battleground, emails grew terse, and every little thing I did was scrutinized. I realized that even though I'd won this battle, the war for respect was just beginning. Still, I never regretted standing my ground. The VP's intervention taught me that professionalism and a little backup can level the playing field, even against the toughest critics. After Glenn CC'd Karen's boss, things in the office didn't just cool off, they froze over completely. Karen wasn't subtle about her resentment. It was like every glance in my direction was loaded with contempt. The once quiet snide comments became louder, and meetings with her turned into a minefield. She would cut me off mid-sentence, roll her eyes openly, and make passive-aggressive remarks like, "Well, if the intern can do it, maybe we should just have him do the reports from now on." That line stung. Not because Mike was a kid, but because it was a direct jab at my competence. I was in my late 20s, working hard to get my foot in the door. And Karen was making it clear she wanted me out of her way. The VP, Glenn, noticed the tension and called me into his office a couple weeks after the email exchange. He said, "Look, I know Karen's been difficult, but you handled it professionally. Just keep your head down and keep doing your work well." It felt like a warning wrapped in a compliment. But what really threw me off was when Karen's boss, Mr. Donovan, scheduled a meeting with both of us. The whole office felt like it was waiting for fireworks. At the meeting, Donovan laid it out flat. "Karen, your rewrite had issues that could have caused major errors. That's not acceptable for someone at your level. I expect better, and I expect you to work collaboratively with our junior staff." Karen looked like she wanted to explode, but just nodded stiffly. After the meeting, I thought maybe things would improve, but Karen doubled down. She started pushing me out of projects, spreading rumors that I was too sensitive and not a team player. I found out through a co-worker she was telling others I had gone over her head and was trying to show her up. That rumor mill hit me hard. Suddenly, I was excluded from informal lunch invites, after-work gatherings, even casual chats in the break room. My phone stopped ringing with requests for help or collaboration. I felt isolated. Then came the real test. During a crucial quarterly report presentation, Karen unexpectedly challenged a number I had included. In front of the entire finance team, she said, "I think there's a mistake here. Are you sure you checked this thoroughly?" I stood my ground, explaining my process calmly, but the damage was done. The team's confidence in me wavered. That moment crushed me inside. I left the room shaking and almost broke down in tears in the bathroom stall. For the first time, I seriously considered quitting. But Mike, the intern, caught me on the way out. He said, "Hey, I've got your back. Let's nail the next one together." That small act gave me the strength to push forward. Meanwhile, Karen's hostility started affecting her too. I noticed she was snappier, stressed, and more defensive. Rumors about her behavior were starting to circulate upwards. I heard from a friend in HR that there had been complaints against her for toxic behavior and creating a hostile work environment. Meanwhile, I was quietly building my own support network. Some colleagues who saw through Karen's bitterness and respected how I handled the situation professionally. Slowly, I began getting invited back into projects. Glenn even assigned me a new responsibility: training interns on financial reporting standards. But just when I thought I might finally breathe, the next curveball hit. One afternoon, I got an email from Karen, not professional, just a blunt message. "Watch your back." I saved that email, because the battle wasn't over, and now it was personal. After Karen's ominous "watch your back" email, I felt like I was walking on eggshells every day. I didn't reply, didn't escalate, just saved the message. I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of knowing she rattled me. But then things got worse, not with me but with Mike, the intern. One afternoon, Mike called me, voice shaking. "I don't think Karen likes me much either," he said quietly. Turns out, Karen had been criticizing Mike's work to his professor and even tried to get his internship terminated, saying he was disruptive and not up to the task. I could barely believe it. Karen was targeting an intern now. That was beyond petty. I decided to step in, writing a careful email to HR highlighting the unfair treatment Mike was facing and attaching some examples of his solid work. I CC'd Glenn and Mr. Donovan. HR took it seriously. They launched an investigation into Karen's behavior with interns and junior staff. Suddenly, Karen was under a microscope. But then came the real shock. A week later, during a team meeting, Glenn announced there would be a company-wide audit on all department reports for the last fiscal year. He explained it was standard procedure, but the timing seemed suspiciously aligned with the Karen situation. I suspected the audit was a test to expose any more issues she might have caused. As the audit unfolded, a few red flags popped up: some misreported numbers, sloppy formatting, and some expenses that weren't properly documented. Much of it traced back to reports Karen had submitted over the last several months. It looked like she'd been cutting corners, possibly to cover her workload, or maybe just out of carelessness. Then came the bombshell. HR called me in for a meeting and showed me some emails they found on Karen's work computer. She had been forwarding confidential financial data to a competitor. The emails were vague, but the implication was clear enough to warrant a full-scale investigation. I was stunned. The woman who had humiliated me, undermined me, and threatened me was now facing possible legal consequences. But it didn't stop there. Karen's personal life started unraveling too. Through the grapevine, I heard her husband filed for divorce, citing stress and emotional distance. Her teenage daughter stopped speaking to her after discovering how toxic her mom had become at work and home. The company eventually suspended Karen pending the investigation, and she disappeared from the office like a ghost. Meanwhile, I was still trying to stay afloat. The tension and fallout left me mentally drained, and my confidence was shaken. I found myself battling insomnia, anxiety, and second-guessing every move at work. One night, I found myself staring at the ceiling, wondering if all the struggle was worth it. I had won in a way, but at what cost? Then Glenn sent me a message. "Good work standing your ground. Let's discuss your career path next week. That gave me hope. But deep down, I knew the war with Karen had left scars on everyone, not just her, not just me, but the whole team. And I couldn't shake the feeling that the story wasn't quite over. After Karen's suspension, the office atmosphere shifted. People were cautious, quieter. The toxic cloud she'd cast finally lifted, but the damage she caused lingered like a bad smell. Karen's suspension turned into termination after the investigation confirmed her misconduct with financial data. The company handed the case to their legal team, and eventually law enforcement got involved because sending sensitive info to competitors was a serious crime. It was shocking to see someone so senior fall so hard. Her personal life crumbled alongside. Her husband's divorce was finalized 6 months later. I heard from a coworker that her daughter cut all contact, blaming Karen's obsession with power and control for breaking the family apart. Karen was left alone, burned out, and broke, a shell of the woman who had ruled the finance department with intimidation. As for me, I didn't walk away unscathed. The months of stress and backstabbing took a toll on my mental health. I struggled with anxiety attacks and long nights second-guessing my every move. I even saw a therapist for the first time, something I'd never considered before. The trust one once had in my coworkers was shaken. Some still looked at me like I was the one who stirred the pot, as if standing up to Karen was wrong. It hurt, but I learned that sometimes doing the right thing means making enemies. Glenn, the VP, kept his word. After the dust settled, he promoted me to lead analyst and gave me the chance to train new hires. It was a small victory, but a meaningful one. I finally felt like I earned my place. But the hardest part was losing the trust of my own family. The long hours and stress made me distant at home. My wife complained I was different, more closed off and distant. Our teenage son started avoiding conversations with me, sensing something was wrong but not knowing what. One night, after a particularly rough day, my wife told me, "You're not the man I married. You've let this job change you." It crushed me. I realized I had been so focused on proving myself at work that I had neglected the people who mattered most. I tried to fix it. I slowed down, prioritized family, and started opening up about the struggles I'd faced. Slowly, the walls between us came down, but some scars remain. Karen's downfall taught me a harsh lesson about the cost of workplace politics and standing up for yourself. Revenge wasn't about making her suffer. It was about refusing to be crushed by her. But the damage left behind, to me and others, was real and lasting. In the end, I hope she learned something from losing everything: the job, the family, the respect. And I hope I did too. Because winning a battle doesn't always mean winning the war inside yourself. After Karen's suspension turned into termination, the office slowly began to breathe again. But it wasn't like flipping a switch. There were cracks everywhere. People whispered in hallways, colleagues avoided eye contact, and the tension lingered like smoke long after a fire's gone out. Karen's downfall was total. The legal investigation confirmed she'd shared confidential financial data with a competitor. It wasn't just a careless mistake. It was a betrayal of the company's trust and possibly criminal. Word spread fast. Suddenly, the woman who had ruled the finance department with an iron fist was being escorted out with a box of her belongings, while whispers of legal trouble and scandal followed her. Her personal life unraveled just as quickly. Her husband filed for divorce, citing unbearable stress and emotional distance. Her teenage daughter, who had always admired her mother, cut ties completely after learning how toxic Karen had become, both at work and home. It was painful to hear about her family breaking apart because of her own actions. She'd lost more than a job, she'd lost herself. But for me, the cost was more complicated. Months of stress, constant battles, and sleepless nights wore me down. Anxiety became my new normal. I'd lie awake, heart pounding, replaying every confrontation and wondering if I'd done enough, or too much. I started seeing a therapist, something I never thought I'd need, but the emotional toll was real. I realized that standing up for myself didn't mean I was invincible. Work became both a refuge and a battleground. Some coworkers quietly respected me, while others seemed wary, as if I was the one who stirred the pot. I lost friends in the office, and the isolation stung deeper than any insult Karen had ever thrown my way. Glenn, the finance VP, stayed true to his word and promoted me to lead analyst. That was a turning point, finally some recognition. He even asked me to help train new hires, a role I took seriously. But I knew I had to earn back not just my position, but my confidence. The hardest wounds were at home. I was distant, too wrapped up in the fight, too exhausted to be present. My wife told me one night, tears in her eyes, "You're not the man I married. This job, it's changing you." Our teenage son stopped confiding in me. I wasn't just losing a coworker's respect. I was losing my family's trust. It was the most painful consequence of all. I began to slow down. I started sharing my struggles with my wife, opening up about the anxiety and pressure I'd hidden. We went to counseling together. It wasn't a quick fix, but it was a start. Slowly, the walls came down. My son began talking again. My wife stopped looking at me like I was a stranger. Looking back, the revenge I got wasn't about watching Karen fall. It was about refusing to let her drag me down with her. But the scars she left were real, on her, on me, and on everyone caught in the crossfire. I hope Karen learned from losing everything: her job, her family, her reputation. And I hope I learned how much it costs to stand your ground, and that sometimes winning means fighting to keep yourself whole. Because in the end, revenge doesn't just change the person you fight against. It changes you too.